Hi and welcome to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast for athletes, coaches and professionals who want to achieve their goals faster. I'm David Charlton and I'll be sharing proven methods from leading athletes, coaches and experts that will help you get the most from your talent. Today's show is sponsored by Functional Intelligent Training, who are a sports injury clinic located in Gosforth near Newcastle upon Tyne and specialise in athlete development, nurturing future champions, strength and conditioning support and excellent rehabilitation services. Today's topic is an interesting one. It's mental toughness and how it applies to rugby players. And I'm excited to be interviewing Toby Flood, former England international rugby player and current Newcastle Falcons player. Welcome, Toby.
Okay, good. Well, good to be on. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for your time, Toby. I'm sure you're going to have some really interesting insights into playing rugby at an elite level with some fascinating stories too. Firstly, what I'm going to ask you though is a little bit left field. It's about your Twitter profile. So obviously you're a talented rugby player, but you've got a few other talents: horse whisperer, ventriloquist. What's that all about?
I think you missed that lady swimmer model. Yeah, I don't know. I think when I was younger and I set it up, I was a bit like, I just didn't want to write rugby player or whatever. I just thought it was a bit crass. Not crass, wrong word, because I know boys do it anyway. But it just felt a bit weird. I'd sort of shout from the rooftop, really. So I just sort of messed around with it for a couple of days, and I ended up landing on that. And it sort of followed me around like a bit of a bad smell in terms of every time I get asked about it, it's sort of an odd thing. And then I got sort of invited to odd places, and they sort of look at me as if to say, "Well, what's this about?" And so it's just me. I probably should change it, but Twitter's moved on so much, I don't know how to change it. It's my problem.
So it's stuck. Good stuff. Obviously, playing at the level that you have over the years there, it's going to have its unique pressures along the way. So I can imagine having a sense of humour is quite important. Have you found trying to keep perspective through some difficult times challenging at times?
Yeah, massively. I think you touch upon the pressures of performance. It's sort of a weekly, if not daily, grind, really. And you use the word grind in its loosest sense, but you're constantly aware of, one, that you're only as good as your last game. So the week coming is massive. You have to try and stay in the present, and that's very difficult for various reasons. If you're playing in front of thousands at a stadium or millions in front of a TV, you have to have an awareness of how you've got to sort of distance yourself from those pressures. And then during the week, obviously trying to manage your emotional pressures for having a bad training session or feeling a bit under the weather or just getting outside the wrong side of bed or just whatever it may be. So the sense of humour side of thing, I think, is it's almost I suppose a bit of a safety blanket of trying to tell yourself during those sort of 6 days in between games that it's not too serious, it doesn't matter. But then over time, sort of like 2 or 3 days out, there's less sort of messing around or whatever it may be. There's probably more focus on the game, and I think it's just trying to find a happy balance or happy medium between. Because you just need to be able to mentally relax at times. You need to be able to get away from it and do something. And I always found that when you're in that England rhythm and you're playing big profile games, but I sort of come from, we normally used to do Monday, Tuesday on, Wednesday off. And on that Tuesday, on the Wednesday, I'd go in and kick, or I'd go and do some work experience in the city in London or whatever it may be. It was just a way of breaking up the rhythm of it. And then on Thursday, we'd have a very short session, and I then would try and, with a few mates, just try and go out for coffee. It sounds like a very trivial thing to do, but it's just a way to go out there and just talk some rubbish and hang out for a couple of hours. And a half an hour coffee would turn to 3 as you're sort of laughing and joking. And then probably you knew that was your last trigger, even though you had a bit of fun on the Friday and tried to relax. You knew that was your last trigger to really start to get into a big profile game on the weekend.
Some great points you've talked about there. I can imagine, obviously, rugby being a team sport, being around the group is a real help in that sense with the banter and what have you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're not left to your own thoughts too much, which is good, and it does help to have big characters in the team that can lift the team. And they're as useful as you can imagine. But I think it's I suppose the unique set of points is when you're, I suppose, a goal kicker to a point, you're often left with your own thoughts out on the field when you're practicing for an hour or so afterwards, or before training, or whatever it may be. So it's always good to have that sort of rapport with your teammates and be able to mess around and joke around, especially in a dead time as well. You know, the effort that's been made in so many camps you go to have table tennis, to have pool tables, to have games consoles, just to have a coffee, whatever, is really important. I think it allows that tighter bond between you and your teammates, but also it just gives you that time to relax. And certain guys will go off and do some studying, certain guys will do some work, whatever's their releases. And it just depends on the individual. But as you say, that sense of humour and that rapport, because rugby, especially, well, I suppose most changes are pretty ruthless environments. You know, if it's a joke with a bit of malice in it, then that sort of is the norm. So you've got to learn to ride it a little bit, but at the same time, it's just part of the process. And actually, you know, as you say, it's a team-orientated game, and everyone needs one another. So as long as you've got the same values and the same principles, you're in a good spot.
Is it quite easy to become reactive, especially if you go through a period where you lose form or the team's struggling as well?
Yeah, no, massively. I think you can find yourself. You know, I've always tried to say, like, I try to ground myself in hard work. But absolutely, there's times in my career where, you know, your form wasn't great, or the team wasn't playing well, and you just work harder. And sometimes that's not the answer. Actually, trying to relax and trying to distance yourself from the sort of the weekly battle is interesting. So yeah, I think there's pros and cons to it. I mean, and I think what you've got to try and do is, as long as you've got a decent set of processes in terms of if it's a closed skill like goal kicking, or if it's a preparation, or it's part of your weekly routine, then as long as you sort of, if they're aligned with what you're trying to do on the weekend, then that can't do you any harm. I think the one thing is you don't want to do is just flog yourself, say, because sometimes you try and control the uncontrollable. Certainly in your career, you try and you worry about the what ifs or the potentials or whatever it may be. So they're the things you've got to try and distance yourself from, which is very difficult, especially, as I said before, when you've got so much pressure on you to perform, and there's a lot of people watching at home, and you sort of think about potential other people's thoughts and processes, you know, in the stand or whatever. So you've got to be very, very sort of conscious and very sort of sure in your own ability at times to be able to disregard those.
Yeah, you've touched on something there where you talk about being confident in your own ability. It's a big part of mental toughness. And I know I certainly see in my work how athletes, rugby players, footballers, how if they don't necessarily have that real belief in their ability, that trust, they can get caught up in actually just driving and working too hard, but working on the wrong things sometimes.
I think that's a really fair point. I think the irony when your trust wanes, you sort of have huge self-doubts, and you have huge self-doubts in all of your game. Even if let's say kicking, passing, running was really strong and tackling was the weak point, you then might go, well, I just need to do it all. And so therefore you're spending, let's say, you know, an hour on three or four things, where actually you just need to spend 25 minutes on your tackling, or it's your passing, or whatever it may be. So absolutely, when there's a bit of self-doubt in your performance, you try and correct all of it. And actually, for large parts, you've got to be very sort of systematic about what you think's going well and what you think's going wrong, and try and isolate that bit. Because actually, ironically as well, when I remember when I was a young boy and sort of play rugby, and it was always a sort of, I was quite scrawny, and people used to think that I wasn't a great defender in terms of attack. I was willing to put my body on, but I was just so small. I sometimes get bounced off when I was smaller, and actually just focusing on that one thing of just going, right, I'm going to do some more tackling every week, and try to get better at this skill set. The rest of my game just took care of itself, because I was actually just focusing on one thing. So the kicking, running, passing, communication stuff was fairly simple, because actually I was just worried about someone like Josh Lucy running over me or whatever. And over time, when you learn that process of going, actually my tackling's not bad, it never was, but it was, let's say it was the weakest part of my game, or it was my passing, whatever, it actually made the rest of the game fall into place, because you were just going to a game going, need to defend, and make sure I do a good job there. And that single focus, then everything else sort of looked after itself.
That makes a lot of sense. So, like, over the years, how have you gone about how you actually take a step back and reflect and then work on the right things? Yeah,
it's tough, because sometimes in the midst of it, you know, you might have hit a bad kick in a game and then thrown a couple of bad passes, and then you think your whole game's fallen apart. And I think that's when you have to rely on the sort of framework around you, that it goes back to the early part where you've got those processes in place and you've got those structures and you've got decent people you can talk to, whether it be a peer or whether it be a coach, and actually they can sort of compartmentalize it. And they've sometimes got to convince you that it isn't your tackling, it isn't your passing, it's just, you know, it was actually just concentration on that. So let's go out and do some concentration work on goal kicking, or let's go do some concentration work on or decision making on your left hand pass or your right hand pass, or whatever it may be. You've got to have the trust in that network you've got around you, that they're telling you the right things and they're seeing the things that you're feeling to a point. But you also want to be challenged massively as well. I think you want to be challenged all the time to not stand still. I think that's one of the biggest things as well, that you sort of feel like you've accomplished something or achieved something. And I think then that's when you want that network to go, your passing's great, except whatever. But have you seen this guy down the road? And he throws it 5 yards further than you, quicker than you, does this, and you say, why don't we try and catch it up? So it's almost trying to have the people that want that security blanket of knowing who you are and what you're about, but then also those people who are the same in that security blanket, willing to challenge you and push you further.
That makes a lot of sense. Play for England as many times as you have, and to make up the steps up to Leicester and to Toulouse, then you've obviously had to challenge yourself on a regular basis, week by week.
Yeah, you do, and I think you've got to. I think I learned a huge amount going from Newcastle to Toulouse and to Leicester at the time. Leicester were the forefront of English rugby. When I went there, we won five or six finals, and how many titles and that sort of stuff was great. Went to Toulouse, the biggest club in France as well, and that was a huge, ripping off the band-aid, really. It was a massively different culture and environment and ethos to how they play. And it was being challenged all the time. I'm going to Leicester and sort of being told I have to run this team and, fly half at the age of 21, 22, when it was full of World Cup winners and all that sort of stuff. And that was fairly daunting. And then going to Toulouse again with a plethora of French talent mixed with some superstars from world rugby as well. It was challenging. Yeah, I probably had more grounding at that point, being sort of 27, 28, having had an international career on me, but it was probably just as daunting because the communication side early on for the first 5 or 6 months was tough. And then you would spend time sort of just trying to assimilate yourself with the culture, and that again was difficult. So it was great fun. I mean, it's a great thing to have then the chance to come back here and try and dip in a little bit of my knowledge and what I've learned over the way to the young guys like Will Hayden Wood, Rob Farrar, Tom Marshall, the young guys coming through is really important as well. And look, I've sort of been very open with them. If they need any help, I'll do whatever I can. But certainly, I'm very fortunate to have a good career because, I think sadly rugby's becoming one of those environments where careers are fairly short. I think the average time is about 7 years now, and I managed to keep going for sort of 16, 17 years, which is good fun.
That's impressive, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Can I take you back to, you mentioned about the move to Leicester then, at that young age, and was managing your own thoughts, emotions, if you like, at that time. What sort of things would you be thinking, especially when you first made the move?
Yeah, I wasn't very good at it. So I'd come from an environment where Newcastle, I was playing some good rugby at Newcastle. We had a good coach at the time who were just wanting us to go out there and just play. It was just like it was like, so I had John Fletcher and Peter Walter at the time, and then Batesy came in, Steve Bates came in, but it was all about just going out there and playing. And yes, there's a bit of more structure, I suppose, with Batesy than was with Fletcher, but Fletcher would argue you don't need structure, but that's another point. But the point being was, I sort of went there from a club, and this is no disrespect to the club at the time, but it knew that it was never probably going to win a title that year or the next couple of years for whatever reason, because they didn't have the infrastructure or whatever. Whereas the moment I went to Leicester, it was expected. You had to win, and you were going to win the title because you won it last year, or you'd won it 2 years prior. You'd been in every single final for the last 6 years, 7 years, or whatever it was. So the pressure then to win was massive, and it wasn't okay to lose a game. So sometimes I guess for whatever, potentially my mental, it was never okay to lose a game, but I think there was potentially, we went to Gloucester away and we lost by a point. That's not too bad. Whereas, at Newcastle, that would be like, that's pretty good effort on the way from a team full of internationals. Whereas at Leicester, it was a tough Monday morning because you'd lost the game by 1 point when you bombed 3 chances. And I think that was the big thing. It was the constant pressure to perform. And I think when I was younger at 21, I probably 21, 22, I probably didn't deal with it as well as I should. I didn't have the parameters in place or the framework in place to really sort of stay in the present. I was always conscious of the what if, or I get quite nervous before games, and nerves are great. I think probably the right word is probably anxiety. I'm probably more anxious about my performance. And it took me about 6 months to get myself into the bedrock of Leicester, really. And I think my coach at times, when I ruptured my Achilles at the end of the season in the Heineken Cup semi-final, like Cockrell at the time, the coach said that was probably his best game. That he sort of told the third person, so that was probably his best game of the year. And I felt like I was really growing into the season as the season developed and understand the culture of the place, how hard nosed it was, what was expected from you, how you had to front up, how you couldn't just disappear for 30 minutes or a week or whatever it may be, depending on training. And I think when I had that sort of 5.5 months when I ruptured my Achilles out, I really sort of allowed myself to bed myself into the structure of the club. And I came back and I was, very, very confident because of the work I put in throughout my rehab and where I was, and the fact that I'd had a good end to the year, that allowed me then to come back straight in. And I think I was straight back into the England team after, a few games for Leicester, and it was, and that sort of set the ball rolling, really.
You talked about nerves or anxiety you mentioned there about before games. Is that something that's completely changed throughout your career, and maybe the way you've actually dealt with that, the processes you've had in place?
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got to control it, absolutely. And there's times you can't control it in the sense that you're gonna. I think it's almost accepting that you're going to be nervous. I think you've got to accept there's going to be, and I think it's trying to control them and keep them nervous rather than keep them become anxiety. And I remember some of the lads said to me last year, I think, or this year, what it was, like I think it was Trevor Davison looked at me and said, "Do you get nervous anymore?" And I think because I'm 34 in an environment where there's a lot of young lads knocking around now. I'm probably granddad's age, but it was and I sort of I do. I still get nervous, and I think it's just managing them. I've just got better at managing them, and it's quite a difficult thing to do, I suppose, because there are games where you've been incredibly anxious before a game or nervous, however you want to call it, depending on how you depict it, and you've had an exceptionally good game. And then you've had the same sort of feeling and you've had a really poor game. And it's that ability to manage it, because that's the key to me. I think I always was, especially when I was younger, I was quite an emotive player. I wanted to be, I was quite fiery. I would sort of wear my heart on my sleeve a bit. And I think I've curtailed that a little bit now. I think I've become better at it, but it's still certainly there. You speak to any of the boys, I'll still say I sort of, the toys got the pram on occasion. But I think it's just the ability to sort of stay as level as you can and try and stay present. They're the two big things for me, and I'm still working on it to this day. I don't think it ever leaves you, because it's natural instinct or natural human emotion to project yourself onto another's thoughts and feelings, and I think that's still part of the process of developing. I'm 34, and it's still trying to talk to young lads about how it can affect you and all that sort of stuff, and I think it's still part of a huge process to manage it, really.
How do you go about it then for, what would you say, the last 24, 48 hours before a big match?
So I'm fairly relaxed. I've got 3 young ones at home now, and so that I don't really get time to think about it. So I had about 15 seconds in the car. But I was always quite similar. I always try and push it away. I always sort of say, like, I'll deal with this. I'm much better. I'm talking about the French. The French always used to be in a hotel night for a game, home or away. That's what we did. So at home we'd go, because the French need this sort of long winding road to a game, whereas I just don't. I think I'm very happy to come in with a smile on my face, an hour and 15 out, have a bit of a giggle with someone, laugh about, and then I'm very happy just to switch it. And I've always found that I'm better at that. Now I've thought about the game quite a lot coming up to it, so I think it's part of the process. I've given myself 5 minutes to think about positive stuff. How do I want tomorrow to look? How do I think the game should play out? What's structurally in place? Then I'm dropping off. Then I'm going to do something else. Then I'm doing it again in 25, half an hour. There's this constant sort of reflection on what's happening in the game, or this constant sort of ebb and flow about what I'm thinking about. But for me, I'm very, very happy to keep it at arm's length for a long time, and then an hour and 15, an hour before the game, then I can really start to wind it up. And that's probably my process, really. I think about it quite a lot in small patches. Then I go and do some gardening, or I'll go and play with the kids, or I'll go and watch a bit of TV, whatever it may be, bit of work, and then I'll come back to it and then I'll just think about it again. It's that sort of, it's that ability to dip in and dip out, I found always plays well, because I think when we talk about anxiety, when you were a younger boy, it was that constant thought process. It was always there, and you sort of forgot about it almost for 10 minutes, and then you went, oh, the game tomorrow. And that was the constant ebb and flow of it, really. So I think it's now being able to control your preparation, your thoughts, your positive thoughts about it. And then actually when I know that I can flip the switch at about an hour out from a game and really start to bed into the game.
So when you were going through that little process there where you're talking about you're dipping in, thinking about the game, are you doing that like through using visualization or anything like that? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll visualize most of it. There might be times I just close my eyes for 5 minutes and just visualize passing, kicking, tackling, whatever. Yeah, and I think I did have that a lot as a younger boy, especially when we go back to that sort of tackling thing. I was like, right, this is how I'm going to hit somebody, this is what I'm going to do, or this is the pass I'm going to run. And it was almost that sort of started to bring you into the game, and it started to get your mind and your body focused on what was about to expect. So yeah, absolutely, huge amounts of visualization.
I suppose the lesson there is visualization, and the way you go about it helps your confidence and reduces the anxiety, so you can go out and do your stuff on the pitch ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more you spend in this, you're chatting to people like yourself or others, the mind does struggle to distinguish between your mental imagery and actually doing it for real. And I think that's a really big thing. I'm sure there was a Freddie Flintoff talked about that. His body started to let him down. He would bowl more in his head and less on the field because his head, he managed to teach himself this was okay. And it's been a little bit of that with my goal kicking. I can't kick for an hour and a half, 2 hours as I used to as a kid. I have to sort of put the pressure on by fewer balls and make it much more high pressure and more game realistic, but I also kick another 20 or 30 in my head after the session, just sitting there, just having a little think about it.
There's a great takeaway for young players there. Completely agree. Young players can benefit hugely from learning how to visualize if they recognized it was a skill that can be learned and how powerful it can be. The impact it can have on developing your skills, your confidence levels, reducing anxiety, and then actually aiding your recovery too. Thanks so much for sharing your experiences of visualization and its benefits. Before we wrap things up, just thinking about the unique pressures of goal kicking, then what is your little process, if you like, before you go up and kick the ball over the post? What does that look like?
So it's I think it's never been a fixed thing. So I think over time you sort of learn what works for you, but in terms of routine or whatever, but you've always got to have for me it's got to have 2 or 3 things about it, and I think for me it's the moment I get the ball that's the start of the process. So if someone's scored a try, I get the ball, and then once I've got the ball, there's quite a few times in my career where the coaches have laughed at me for they scored a wonder try, and all I care about is getting the ball. It's all I want to do. I think there was a game in Cardiff where we'd scored a try, Ashley got under the post, and he's expecting me to give him a high five. I've sort of pushed him out the way and got the ball. I just don't want to talk to him. I'm getting the ball. I mean, it's the easiest conversion in the world. So in front of the post 2 yards out, which is fine. But I was like, no, ball. And the moment I get the ball, then the process starts. And then I start locking down into what I need to do. So it's sort of like it's a wide game feeling of how I want to play. And then suddenly it becomes a single unit skill or a single closed skill. And that's when I've got the ball. And then I'm just thinking about process, and I'm working sometimes, or certainly over my career, I've dropped like a bell jar over me. So almost then I've gone, this is my camp. No other thoughts, feelings, or perspectives can infiltrate this. And it's just me and the ball. And that's quite a big thing. And then I'm thinking about how I want it to feel, how I want it to look, and all those cues that you've spent hours now. And then fundamentally, you're back in the process because you've done it so many times. That you feel that you just need to replicate a good one. And I know, golfers say the same thing, they know when they've hit a good ball, they don't need to look at it. And it's the same with goal kicking. If you hit a good one, you don't need to look at it, you just turn and run back. So that's the big thing. You're just trying to create that feeling of connection with you and the ball, and then you hopefully you've done the right thing and it goes through.
The way you're talking, you're connecting to your senses in some ways, aren't you? When you're visualising it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're feeling it on your foot. You're doing exactly visualising. You're visualising going to the post. You're visualising the shape of it. All that sort of stuff. And that again is mentally challenging during the week because you might have had a bad session, tough session, you might have for an hour and a half. Your body's fatigued, your mind's fatigued because you've been running a session at fly half, and then you've got to go out and hit 30, 40 kicks, and you've got to try and keep yourself going. And there are times absolutely in my career where I've just kicked for kicking's sake, and and I'm getting nothing out of it. I'm just kicking, and I'm not stimulating myself mentally. I'm not challenging myself because I can hit as many as I want, because I'm not putting any pressure on myself to get it over, because I just throw another one down, kick it again. Third time it's gone over, great, and I move on, rather than actually making it really a mental challenge. Going, you've got 6 balls here after an hour and a half, or 12 balls here after an hour and a half. You've got to kick it 80%. That's probably where it took me a while to actually be brave enough to challenge myself in that way, because when I was younger, I just hit 30, 40 balls. And yes, repetition's great. And yes, it probably produced a process and fundamentals to my kicking game that were really good, and it gave me a really core base, but it didn't probably produce this level of toughness in my goal kicking to be able to walk away after 8 kicks, having kicked 3 of them, going, it'll be all right tomorrow. And that, I had to see the ball go through the post. So over time, because my body just can't do the same, I've had to develop that that mindset.
That makes sense. In a way, spend 10 quality minutes as opposed to 45 minutes of,
yes,
where you're not focused at all.
Yeah.
I like that. So in terms of takeaways, can you think of like 3 really important things that you would mention to a young up and coming rugby player based on our discussion?
Well, first and foremost, it's a classic response from any sportsman, but it is enjoy it. I wouldn't be here now if I didn't enjoy it. And I know at times where I've not really enjoyed it. To be honest, you have ups and downs in your career. There are times you're thinking, I might just pack this in, but then you remember that you're not able to do anything else because you're too old to change sports and you're not clever enough to get a good job. So you're like, okay, I'll best do this. So yeah, enjoy it really. I think and play with a smile on your face. And then 2, I think just work at the fundamentals of the game, and work hard at them. I think it's a classic thing, but I have seen so many people with so much talent who haven't made it purely because their eye got caught by something else, or they preferred a social life, or they had more friends than I did. All girls liked them when they were younger, and they didn't like me. So all that sort of stuff. And then I think, you put together the enjoyment and the hard work. And then I think the thing with me is, and it is what we're talking about now, it's just get your mental prep right, just if you're going to enjoy it and you're happy to work hard, then just make sure you don't feel pressured and stressed by it. Find a release for it. If that's to go and do something else, to play something else, whatever. Because it's easy to say enjoy it, because ultimately, I still remember the pressure playing under 8s rugby or under 9s rugby, because we were playing the final and we wanted to win. That was pressure in itself. Yes, it was exciting, but I was nervous. And that's it, and I think that's it. Make sure you're doing other things and play up to other sports to make sure that if you do come to rugby or you do go to tennis or whatever it may be that you prefer, that it's enjoyable and there's a crossover and you're playing lots of different things. So for me, it's hard work, play different sports and just enjoy it. Like I don't think I've ever. There are times when rugby players are quite sappy in the changing room. That was a rubbish session. That was crap. Or they were moaning, and I'm a part of it. But if you wouldn't be there if you didn't enjoy it, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I like that. So enjoy the moment, enjoy the journey if you like.
Yeah.
Work hard, prepare mentally so you find some downtime in amongst it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the 3 key messages.
Feeling,
yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
Whereabouts can people find you on social media?
Yeah.
Apart from Twitter.
On profile on Twitter. So I'm on Twitter, I think it's just Toby Flood, and then I think I'm on Instagram. I had to join Instagram because I got told I was a granddad, so I joined it, and I still don't know how it works. But I'm on Instagram, I think it's like Flood Tobias or something, it's terrible. Yeah, so I think I've posted like 4 different things, but yeah, useless. Apart from that, that's me.
Okay, so you're not a big social media fan then?
I have no idea how to do it. But anyway, yeah, we're good. It's outgrown me already.
Well, like I say, thanks very much for your time. It's been brilliant listening to your little stories there and advice. I'm sure the listeners will pick up lots of little tips there.
Brilliant. Cheers, David. Thank you.
I really enjoyed talking all things mental toughness with Toby in that interview, and hope that you enjoyed the insights and stories that he shared, and that you tune in to the next episode of Demystifying Mental Toughness, where I reflect on some of the points that Toby's mentioned. I'd like to give a big thanks to today's sponsors. Functional Intelligent Training, who are a sports injury clinic located in Gosforth near Newcastle upon Tyne, and specialise in athlete development, nurturing future champions, strength and conditioning support, and excellent rehabilitation services. Thank you for listening to Demystifying Mental Toughness today. To sign up for tips and advice to help you be the best that you can be, go to www.sport-excellence.co.uk and sign up to the Mental Edge newsletter.